Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Bonnie Rose Weaver. We are at the first class for Grow Your Medicine, which most of us are going to be doing 12 sessions together, which is significant. And I'm really excited for this session. Hi, Rena. Welcome. Um, Tonight, we are going to do a lot of kind of like orientation, introductions, and when it comes to plants, that means seeds. And so we're going to talk about seed preparation and care. Um, and Reina, that's the link if you want to open up the slide deck. I kind of really struggle when I do like share screen full. Anyway, yeah, I think what's best because there's like a lot of different windows to navigate. Let me think about this for a second. I recommend having the slide deck open, but I'm going to maybe share my screen for a little bit. And then in other parts, there's going to be links that you'll want to click on. So it's really helpful to have the um the slide deck just around. So let me just get into the slide deck for a little bit. So Um, the theme for this slide deck is this hopefully adorable groundhog. And the reason for that is that the timing of this course has to do with when we arrive at this time of the year, which is referred to as different things. It definitely coincides with the Lunar New Year. And in the pagan tradition, it's about um, this celebration that happens on February 1st called Imbolc or Bridget's Day. And so it's recognized in a lot of different cultures. And the mathematical explanation of the importance of this time is the midpoint between winter solstice and spring equinox. And so you can look at it either as the glass half full, which is we're halfway through winter, or you could look at it, or I'm not sure how I want to say that, but you can either look at it as we're halfway through winter, or you can look at it as the beginning of spring. And so different people in different times and places kind of think of it differently. And in the United States, it's somehow turned into this really uneventful holiday called Groundhog's Day. So that's why I made the theme of this slide deck um, this little dude, because it's a reminder of everything we're talking about tonight is about this time of the year. And that's why we have to start in late January, early February on like the processes that we're going to be talking about. So today's agenda, I'm gonna do a little bit land acknowledgement, and then I'm gonna tell you a little bit how to like navigate the course. We're gonna introduce ourselves and think about why we're here, what we want to get out of it. We'll have a little break right before 7. And it's good to like step away from the screen and like for your eyes, look farther away, and also just like to integrate everything that you've learned. So you can look forward to that if that's helpful also for concentration. And then when we get back, I'm going to talk about seeds and we'll have time for questions. And then this little activity will be fun. I'm hoping we have time for it. Sometimes we just end up talking and we don't, but this is fun if you want to do a little bit of art after the break or during the break, you can bring back some supplies and we'll do a little drawing. And then I have a little Google form for you. And then I always try to just like have a little bit of extra time. So the content will usually run between an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. And we'll just have like a little extra time at the end if we need to do like housekeeping or anything like that. So that's kind of the flow of like the classes online. Um, One thing I also want to mention is that this is the first time I've done this class many times, and I'll get into that in a bit Okay, let me just follow my slide deck. All right, sorry about that. So, the land acknowledgement. Um, I think this is important, especially because we're going to be talking about land and getting our hands in the dirt. And so, it's always important to recognize kind of like the legacy of who tended a space. And we'll talk about that as well when we're on site on Saturday. Um, so the first steps of how to do a land acknowledgement um, is to just learn the names of the indigenous nations that tended the land that you're on. I think all of us that are here today are in the San Francisco Bay Area. Is everyone in San Francisco? Yeah. So we're all on Ramaytush Ohlone land. Um, this is a really cool resource, the Native Land Digital Map. If you've never seen that, I recommend taking a moment and just looking like around. It's a really incredible resource that's like a whole globe. And this association, Ramaytush Ohlone, is the organization, nonprofit that of Indigenous people between San Francisco Peninsula and San Mateo County. So that's the traditional lands of the Ramaytush, and there's other Ohlone nations. So in the East Bay, this is a land trust that's run by the Indigenous women there. So those are just some resources to kind of like get us oriented, and I'll be bringing in different pieces of this every class. So if you're inspired to share something, or if you learn something that you want to bring to us on this topic of land acknowledgement, I welcome that. Okay, so this is just a little bit more about how to dig into that if that's new to you. And also the last slide has some links to those websites of the organizations. And those have a lot of great resources as well. Okay, I'm going to give you a little orientation of our digital tools because I want you to feel comfortable with the different platforms that we're using. Right now, we're on Zoom, and so I think it's a pretty common platform, pretty easy to use. Oops. I was trying to make sure there isn't anybody in my email right now. Sorry, over here. Just want to make sure there's nobody trying to get into this Zoom room. Okay, nobody's emailed me. Great. So if you have any questions about like muting, unmuting, all that, definitely feel free to write me an email or do a Zoom tutorial. Um, the thing that people are probably less familiar with is the Google Classroom. Um, so this is a Google Classroom. There's four tabs up here at the top. This is called the stream, which is like how Facebook works. So, like if I wanted to post something in here, like I actually been meaning to post the link for the Zoom room, so I'll do that later. But just so it's easy to find here, there'll be like new things posted in the stream, but then I'm also going to be maintaining um the stream, and so it's organized by each class. So like week 1 and 2 is tonight, and then next time we meet will be week 3 and 4. And every week we'll have a slide deck and a video recording and any other materials that I post. And that's pretty much all you need to know there. Here's the Association of the Ramaytush Ohlone website. Part of this class cost was for a donation to their organization. So you've already made an impact here. Okay. Any other questions about how to get around? We'll be using Padlet tonight. and then the Google Slides are this. Like I said, it's helpful to have them open because then you can click on stuff. And then sometimes when I like do the slideshow, it's like weird for me. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? It's just weird. Abby knows. Okay. So,
Yeah, virtual teaching was not fun.
yeah.
Being a teacher during the pandemic.
And even if I do like full screen for my slide deck, it's just like annoying because I can't see anything else and I'm like, where am I? Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Am I gonna do that? No, I'm not gonna do that yet. Okay, eventually I'll get there. Um, okay, so this is me. This is just a little bit about my background. So, I'm sharing this because I want you to be a little bit familiar with like what I know, which is also what I don't know. I started doing urban agriculture here in San Francisco in 2010-ish. I worked with Little City Gardens for a while, which was really focused on like market ready produce and trying to see like the economic viability of urban agriculture. From there, I studied up in Oregon. I was an intern at a farm there, which is pretty expensive, like 80-acre mega like corporation. So if you're familiar with this company, Herb Farm, they do this internship. And so they make a lot of tinctures and stuff. And that was really cool. And so I kind of took those two ideas. And then I started my first medicine garden project, which was in the Mission. And after that, I wrote this book, and I'm gonna give everybody a copy of that book when I see you guys on Saturday, if you don't have it already. And so a lot of what I teach about is experiences from this garden. I wrote it down in this book, and then also I studied with Peg Schaefer, who wrote another book that has the same name as her farm called The Chinese Medicinal Herb Farm, and she's in Petaluma. And that's all about my growing experience. And then I've studied the therapeutic uses of plants through the Blue Otter School. So you'll probably hear me talk about Karen Sanders and Sarah Holmes. And that's more, we did some like gardening there. But mostly it was about the learning like the Choctaw tradition of herbal medicine. And after all that, I came back and I started the medicine garden at Alamany Farm, which if you haven't been to, you're more than welcome to check it out. It's open 365 days a year during daylight hours, which it's actually part of the St. Mary's Park. And I offer like volunteer hours there sometimes. I'm usually there Friday mornings, and you're welcome to like reach out and join me if that works for you. And this is my contact information if you want to get in touch, if you haven't already and you want to drop me a line. So that's my expertise. Okay. Um, so this is where I have you click on things. Actually, I can put it in the chat. So I'm going to ask everybody to fill out this Google form. It's basically just an overview of how I can best help you. I'm curious to know kind of like what brought you into the class, if you have any like needs around like learning. If all your needs are met, you can just say that all my needs are met. And yeah, I'll give you like a couple minutes to just fill that out. Okay, so I'm gonna offer 6 minutes where we are gonna go into breakout rooms. So for people joining asynchronously, sorry. I'm gonna open up two breakout rooms since there's four folks here. And you're gonna chat and you're gonna have 6 minutes, so 3 minutes each. You kind of did a little practice when you were typing to me, right? Like you already got the juices flowing and like thinking about your favorite herb and all this. So, just say hi and then I'll send a message in 3 minutes and then you can switch and then I'll bring you back. And here's the trick. You have to, when you come back, you have to introduce your partner. So keep, you know, you've got to be paying attention. And here are the things you can look for. So when you come back, you know what to share. So let's start the breakout rooms. I'm going to open those up. And I'll see you guys in 6 minutes. Have fun. Here they come. It's always a good sign when they don't come back right away.
Right. Here we are.
Welcome back.
Bonnie, on my commute today, I was listening to one of the Herbal Highway episodes, and it was like the second to last one, and there was all of the like gratitude messages to Sarah and Karen, and I was like, oh, this is so sad. I feel like I just discovered it, and now it's ending, but I have all the archive to look back on.
Totally. Yeah, it's a huge resource. I didn't catch it today, but I want to. Okay, well, welcome back. Now, don't forget, you're going to introduce your partner. And so, who wants to start?
I can start.
Great. Thank you, Abby.
Okay. My partner was Ganesh. He lives in San Francisco. He uses he pronouns, but is also okay with they, them pronouns. Um, he's kind of just starting to interact with herbs and has loved plants for a long time and is excited to like learn more about herbal medicine and also spend time in the garden. We both kind of like had a similarity of like we've known of community gardens we could go volunteer at for a long time. It's been like on our to-do list, but we haven't done it yet. So um, yeah, that is Ganesh.
Thanks, Abby. Who's next?
I can go
Okay.
return the favor. Yeah, my partner was Abby. She uses she, her pronouns, lives in San Francisco in Bernal Heights Mission area. Um, loves plants, loves gardening, but has been putting off like growing stuff due to the lack of space and also some a structured knowledge that a course like this would give. So she's super excited about this course, has been doing a lot of courses around on herbalism and um, just plants in general and knows quite a bit, and as a school teacher teaches her kids some of that, so which is quite awesome. So that's Abby.
Thanks, Ganesh.
All right, I can go next. Oh, did I beat you to it, Erin? Okay, my partner is Erin. Um, let me just make sure I cover the list here. She prefers she, her pronouns. She's located here in San Francisco, near City College. And So intentions and eager kind of melded together in the way that we were talking about everything. So yeah, so she's really excited about having a space to like get her hands dirty. Hasn't done a lot of gardening, but definitely been inspired by her grandmother and also understanding that plants have communication to share with us as well, and to share in community together and get hands dirty and learn more about planting and discovering too how to do some other things too, like some propagating and some things that she can experiment on her own at home.
Awesome.
Erin.
Thanks.
Excellent, Erin.
Thanks, Raina. Yeah. I guess I'm the last one to go, but yeah. So I got to know Raina a little bit better. She's a she her pronouns, and she's in the mission, and like she said, intentions and eagerness definitely became one and the same, and um, she's really interested in doing it like in the group, in kind of a group learning in the group setting. And also, she's a landscape architect, so she's got quite a bit of experience with plants, but doesn't get to like get out and get dirty every day. So she's really looking forward to that. And then also working with plants in a different way, like especially the like medicinal um and stuff like that. And she's also excited to learn from you and your breadth of knowledge and the teachers and your experience, especially talking, yeah, just talking about your experience with people and treating people and all that. And she took a hydrosol class with you in the past, and she said it was great.
Thank you, Raina. Thank you, Erin. Thank you both. Very sweet. Awesome. Well, it's great to hear a little bit about everybody else and the four of us plus other people who I just cannot seem to find on the internet right now will be with us on Saturday. And we'll be working side by side, so we'll get to know each other more over time as well. We're running early, which like when does that ever happen? But here we are. So I think we'll just keep going. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. My herb teacher, Karen Sanders, used to start most classes with, "Does anyone have any questions?" Which is like such a badass way to start a meeting. So if you ever think of questions, I'll always ask if you have them. And also feel free to pop things into the Google Classroom like throughout the week. If something comes up and you have a question, that can be a way to like collect things. Either if it's quick, I could reply right away, or maybe somebody else knows the answer or has resources. I definitely encourage like collaborative sharing and work here. And if it's like a longer thing and you think of it, it can also be a way for us to just collect topics to discuss when we have time. I did want to mention, this is the first time I'm teaching this class separately. So I used to teach it all on site the first time I did it. Well, the very first time I've taught this class was about maybe 10-ish years ago, maybe 8 or 9. And it was like 1 hour. And then it grew and it was like 4 hours. And it was like all like just like talking. And eventually, when I started the medicine garden at Alemany Farm, I was like, we got to get hands on. We got to make this like an interactive experience. So now it became 6 classes. But anyway, this is the idea now that there's the talking part and the doing part. And so this is our time for talking and like paperwork and slide decks and visual aids and all that. And then on Saturday, it will just be more like, hey, let's go dig that thing up or whatever. And it'll be more embodied. So just to clarify that. And I'm curious to see how it goes. And then I wanted to ask for those who are here and also for folks who are joining later, please, please, please send us an introduction on Google Classroom. Go ahead and post on the feed. Introduce yourself, your name, your pronouns, your location, and what you want to share about why you're here and what you're hoping to get. So we can all keep that in mind and just help you get the most out of this experience. And then I'm also curious who here and also who joining virtually has a garden. And I'm curious if you're going to be working in your garden throughout this time or if we're mostly focusing on the garden that we're building at Calibird. You're going to be working in your garden? Okay, great. And do you have like vegetables in your garden? Are you adding, can you tell us a little bit about it? Like, are you adding stuff to it? Are you just getting started?
Adding stuff to it. I live with my parents in their basement. But they're like really into gardening. But I would like to have more of a medicinal garden and also have more natives back there. And also that we have some raised beds that I wanted to get going again too.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that'll be helpful when we are talking about seeds. If yeah, when we talk about seeds, if there's certain seeds that you want to learn about how to grow, either for your garden or for everybody like that you want to see growing in San Francisco at Calibird, keep that in mind. And that's part of why I'm curious, like, what are the plants that you're really interested in and the needs of this community that's helping make the garden. Okay. Enough chit chat. It's 6:39. Let's come back in 11 minutes. So set your timer for 10 and we'll meet back at 6:50. Okay. Enjoy your break. Don't worry about it. We're going to talk about seeds. So if you have seed packets in your house and you want to get them, it can be a good point of reference, but we can also just, I have plenty of examples as well. All right, so I think for the recording, I'm gonna do this screen share for a little bit. So seeds. Seeds are often really kind of overlooked because they're somewhat simple and yet complicated at the same time. So a lot of times when we are young, people are like might hand us, if we're lucky, like a pumpkin seed, it's like pretty big and just be like, stick it in the ground and it works. Often. It doesn't always work. But it usually will work if it's like a pretty fresh seed and you don't bury it too deep. So part of the reason that vegetable seeds are pretty effective is that vegetables have been cultivated for so long and with such intention that they come up at a very like regular pace. So Isaiah, who is manages the Calibird space, he grows microgreens. And so if you've ever seen like a tray of microgreens, they all just like come up at the same time, they're the same height, right? And that's like a really big difference between vegetables and medicinals. And that's because vegetables are cultivated. They've been in human cultivation for thousands of years. And they've been selected. Like if you ever get a seed catalog, right? There you can open it up and there's like so many different types of just like lettuce. And people have chosen genetically, like initially just through choosing seeds from their traits, and then now through, unfortunately, like genetic manipulation, we can create like red lettuce, right? Green lettuces, combination, frilly, fluffy, ruffles, etc. That's not the case with a lot of herbs. A lot of herbs are wild. And so when we're getting into how to sow each individual herb, we're really going to have to look at like the details. And so there's a lot of information on seed packets. It's helpful if you have them, or even next time, like if you're at the health food store and you see them, like I was at Whole Foods today and I was like, oh, seed packets. You can just like, there's like a little essay on here. Not an essay, but a little, let me show my view. There's like this information, right? And this is catnip. It's from this company, Strictly Medicinals. But there's like all this information. And on Saturday, we're going to get into like actually reading these and seeing what it says. But pretty much all seed packets will tell you. So like in this example, it says plant when all danger of frost is past, and um get them in soon so they can mature 4 feet apart. So that's like planting information once they're in the ground. But generally with, like I said, with vegetables, like it's pretty much just stick the seed in the soil. Whereas with medicinal seeds, here's the instruction. In the spring, scarify seed on sandpaper and plant it in pots or strew directly in the garden. Sow on surface in the light. Germination is usually unreliable, sporadic, and ongoing due to the presence of innate germination inhibitors. Does anybody want to simplify that for us and what you got, what you heard, like little bits and pieces of what that meant? Abby's like, no. Please translate.
That was confusing. I was like, do one thing, and then it said do the complete opposite, and it might not work. Nothing might happen.
Yeah, and don't expect anything. Yeah, so this is what I call what we would call in medicinal plant cultivation like wild germination. And that's because we're working with a wild seed, right? We're working with like DNA that's not manipulated. It's been relying on like for thousands of years, like an uncountable amount of time. It's been relying on natural roles and causes to help it germinate. So when it says scarify seeds on sandpaper, what that is telling me as somebody who's been working with wild seeds for a long time is that this plant may be one that has to go through this digestive system of a bird before it can grow. And part of that is timing. It's like this natural pace of the seasons. So if you think about like the seasons, right? Like maybe we're in winter now. And if you think about like when this catnip plant that these seeds came from, they had to come from a flower, right? So in order to make the flower, the plant had to have a leaf for photosynthesis. So last spring, there was a leaf that photosynthesized and created a flower. That flower got pollinated, and after pollination, it turns into the fruit, which has a seed inside of it. The seed then expects to fall to the ground or be eaten by a bird, etc., and go through winter. And so you have these different cycles. So, like digestion, freezing temperatures, rain, moisture, that creates what we call multi-cycle germination. Multi-cycle germination. And that is the basis of why this class is not about growing vegetables. Because if we were growing vegetables, all we would have to do is, after danger of frost, put the seed in the ground. And like it says on this seed packet, germination is usually unreliable, sporadic, and ongoing. Ongoing because if all of the seeds come up at once and then there's a freeze, now everything's done, right? Now that plant can't actually continue. And so if you're thinking about each generation of seeds being the babies and that the species wants to continue through like evolutionary biology, there has to be like some come up early, some come up late, some come up later, some come up never, some come up next year. And that variability in the DNA creates an environment in which the strongest survive. And sometimes those can even, in the many, many thousands of years, develop into different species. So catnip, this example that we're working with, is part of the mint family, and there's many different types of medicinal mint. So there's that aspect, and then there's also like that genetic variability again. So like if a I don't know, a cat came. Cats love to do this all the time. They come into your garden and they chomp your catnip. And if the catnip is big enough, that doesn't mind. It doesn't, the plant will survive, right? It doesn't matter that the cat has eaten the plant. But if the plant is too small, it will just eat the whole thing. And so that's also why you want plants to come at different times, right? Because then maybe that cat leaves the garden and then this other plant has the ability to grow into a full mature plant. So these tips I have on the next two slides are for the medicinal plants, and we'll talk about why we would do each one. Okay. So this picture right here is what you don't want to do generally. I should have put like a red X through this. So rather than sowing in cells, which this is a pea plant, and rather than choosing this type of cultivation where each seed is in a little tray, or sorry, in a little cell, we're going to sow in trays. And there's a video of me doing this right here, which I will click on to show you. I'm sorry. Okay. So this is a video that we don't actually need to watch right now. We'll watch it later, but this is what I'm talking about with a tray. So usually these trays, this is what we'd be doing on Saturday. Usually these trays are just meant to hold these little cell containers.
Are you trying to share something?
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. Thank you. So this is the tray that I'm talking about right here. And usually these trays are,
Hey, Bonnie, we see the other screen. We see the intentions list.
I'm sorry, my
Okay, you're doing great.
thanks.
You know, Bonnie Rose, this is maybe what you were saying in the beginning. When we look over at the Google Slides ourselves, we actually can see you. It show not your face, but we can see your cursor and what you're pointing at. Because you were kind of suggesting that we maybe follow in the slides rather than you sharing your screen. Oh, your video. Never mind.
That's okay. Yeah. I haven't fully committed to what I want. Yeah, but maybe in the future I'll just plan on. The reason that I want to share the screen is mostly for the recording,
Mm.
but maybe I can just say what slide I'm on because it's just, yeah, it's harder to, anyway, thank you for your patience. So what I'm trying to say is just this tray here is usually what you think of when you're just carrying your plants around, like these cells would be put onto the tray. But instead of planting in the cells, I plant in this tray. And the reason for that is because it creates this effect that is kind of like a natural, like wild environment. So you have kind of like a simulation of just like a field rather than a cell, which is going to be a lot more what's the word? Sensitive. It's going to be affected greater by like dryness and moisture because it's smaller, and so the ebbs and flows. Generally, once a seed is wet, you want it to stay moist through the germination stage. And so if a wild seed takes longer to germinate, or if you're not exactly sure when it's germinating, it needs to stay wet more regularly. So that's why we sow in trays. And that's what we'll be doing on Saturday. Some seeds, not all of them, like this catnip was with the sandpaper, but other seeds are going to be asked to like be moist and kept wet and even put into the fridge. So some seeds you can just put the seed packet into the refrigerator and keep cold for anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks to simulate the winter. Other ones you're going to take out of the seed packet and nestle them into a little moist paper towel, and you can then put that into a plastic bag so that it doesn't get dried out. Make sure you label it because you don't want it to get thrown out, or you don't want to forget which seed it is. So then after a few weeks, you can take it out of the fridge and then try to move those seeds out of the paper towel and then into the seed tray. So one of those is lavender, which I have here. It says, sow in early spring or take advantage of cold soil, which is ideal for germination. So also like soil temperatures can affect these seeds a lot more. Or give 30 days refrigeration in moist peat moss or in a plastic bag or lidded jar. Sow seeds in pots or nursery bed. Barely cover seed, tamp seed firmly, and keep evenly moist and in the light until germination, which can take up to 3 weeks. Thin or transplant to 2 feet apart. So also the timing can really vary. So 3 weeks if I haven't grown a lot of vegetables recently, but like 3 weeks is really long. Like you might be able to like eat a radish by the end of 3 weeks. And lettuce and other vegetables would probably come up within 1 week, like 5 to 8 days. So it's just a different timing. So also the coverage. So a rule of thumb with all seeds is that you don't want to cover them more than twice their width. So like a pumpkin seed is like probably the deepest seed that you can imagine because it's like really wide seed. Um, and you would probably bury that like an inch below. And the reason for that is when a seed germinates, everything inside of a seed is the energy that it needs to create a root down and then a sprout up with the first 2 leaves. And you will see these leaves. We will become very familiar with them. They're called cotyledons, the first 2 leaves. And cotyledon, I will spell it here in the chat. Cotyledon or cotyledon. You can think co as in like a pair, like 2. That's not really 2, but you can't have a cooperative with one person. So a cotyledon or cotyledon is all of the energy of a seed it takes to make those two cotyledons. And then after that, you need photosynthesis to happen. So the seed puts up those two cotyledons, and then those are its solar panels. And then from there, it starts making true leaves, which are usually differently shaped. So the cotyledons have one shape, and then the next pair of leaves are called true leaves. And if you look here on my slide 15 at the top right, you can see them. So there's like these two almost like Mickey Mouse ears shaped leaves, and then you have one true leaf, and that might be an echinacea germ seedling. I actually don't know, but it kind of looks like an echinacea seedling. And so you can see that they're like different color, different shape, sometimes different, like even a different texture. And so some seeds, like chamomile, are really, really tiny. And that means that you don't want to cover them. If you covered them with like an inch of soil, the way that you cover a squash seed, they would never grow. They might grow if the soil got like turned up by like a dog or something, or maybe in a few years if they last that long. And so for this reason, people actually say, if you look it up, that chamomile is light dependent germination. So you don't cover it at all. You actually just press it into the soil. Okay, I think we've covered everything on slide 15. I'm gonna go to slide 16 now. We talked about the sandpaper, so that can replicate like the acid and like the different processes that a seed would be experiencing in a digestive tract. And that's like there's these different coats on the outside of a seed. So if you think of like if you're eating sunflower seeds and you kind of like bite off the rough part, and then there's like that little meaty part in the middle that tastes good. Um, those coats, sometimes there's multiple, there's like many coverings to protect the the part of the seed that's going to actually grow and germinate. And so using sandpaper can wear some of that away in like this like physical almost like exfoliation sort of way. And that will allow the part that can grow, the like the part that's like alive, that's not just like this outer shell, um, that will then be perceptive to like the moisture and the light. Otherwise, it's kind of like stuck in like this little, almost like a fossil, like protection, not a fossil, but like an outer coating, right? Like it's not in contact with the outside world. As I mentioned earlier today, it's really important that oh, I just realized what time it is. Okay. I think I thought this class was 2 hours, but we have about 15 minutes. Okay, great. So it's really important, as I mentioned earlier, to start our seeds now. And this, like, I was talking to some friends about this class, and they're like, why are you teaching gardening in the middle of winter? And the reason is because between now and the spring equinox, there's a really dramatic shift in the length of day. And the seeds are perceptive to this. The plants are very perceptive to this. And so when we're at Calibird, like one thing I'll invite us to do is just do some observations. Like, what do plants look like? Are they growing new leaves? Are they kind of more dormant? And what we'll see over the time that we're there, which is a really powerful thing to really witness. I remember the first time I ever witnessed like oak trees leafing out. They go from these like really kind of like hollow, spooky things that are just like wooden like branches, right? To like full new baby oak leaf. And the willow at Alamany Farm will do that too. And I'm really excited to see how the Calibird space changes. So um, part of the reason that we sow our seeds now is because they're more sensitive to this length of day change. And the when the seed packet says like don't expect anything, right? Like don't be surprised if the the plants don't grow. Germination is unreliable. It's even more reliable if you do it like starting in March or April or May or June. I have really, really poor germination rates if I don't start the seeds in late January or February. By the end of February, I don't really consider it worth it. It just feels like diminishing returns if the seeds aren't started early enough. And so, of course, there's exceptions. Like I like to grow marigolds, which are really commonly grown in the summer for like a fall harvest. So there's certainly like exceptions. And um, one thing we'll definitely touch on is, you know, there's plants from all over the world that we grow here in San Francisco in the Bay Area. A lot of medicinal plants are weeds and they can kind of grow anywhere. Some of them are really adapted to this climate, like plants from Australia, New Zealand, China, and Japan can grow really well. And of course, the Mediterranean, because we live in a Mediterranean climate. And then there's some plants that we can't grow. There's plants that need a lot of heat or need to be at a high altitude. And so we can't grow those medicinal plants. But a lot of times there's like analogs that we can try to use in our apothecaries if we can't grow those herbs ourselves. Some plants actually take up to 7 years to germinate. Trillium, which is the California native, it only grows from seed every 7 years. So that's also something to keep in mind. I've tried growing a couple herbs that are like more woody trees, like hawthorn or crampbark. And the information on there, like it says that it takes a really like up to 2 years, 1 to 2 years to just germinate. So I don't know what happened. They think they got thrown out. Like people were just like, all these people growing vegetables were like, this has been here forever. So I actually don't know what happened to those. Something I could maybe try again. Um, Yeah, we're going to be doing a lot of observation. It's great to bring like a notebook. I'll show you some of the ways that I do my tracking when we do our seed sowing. If you want to have like a garden journal, that can be helpful to track from year to year or to just have a place where you keep track of like what you did in the greenhouse. And it's really easy to get overwhelmed and really excited and eager. I found that for me at the point I'm at, I try to just do one new plant a year. I think if you're starting out, you're like, oh, I want to try everything. I wouldn't recommend trying more than 6 plants. Like that's a lot. If you think about getting to know like 6 new people, that's a lot of people to really get to know, especially if they have all these like, specific needs. And that way you'll just build these relationships. Herbalism is really about building relationships with plants. And so the less you have to pay attention, like if you focus on one or two, then you'll get to observe more. So I think I miscalculated this class. I thought we were going till 8. So I'm gonna skip this activity, My Dream Garden. Basically, if you want to do this over the next 2 weeks before we meet again, the idea is think about what you want in a perfect garden. Like you could imagine the space that you have now. You could, when we go to Calibird, maybe that will inspire you to do some drawing. But thinking about like, what do you want your paths to look like? How do you imagine your beds, right? If you're newer to gardening, maybe you're just thinking about what do you want to grow? And all of those things are just a really fun and like as long or as little as you want to think about them, they can just percolate in you. And so I wanted to share with you guys on slide 18. Um, I have a picture of the medicine garden when we first started working in this space, and it's just a bunch of brambles. And then on slide 19 is the very first day we planted it after we like dug all the paths and designed all the beds, and we were transplanting from another garden up at the front of the farm. And so this is just the very beginning. And then slide 20, you can see on the left, those same beds have grown in. And then here's a close-up of chamomile and also yerba mansa. And so those are just some inspirations. And yeah, there's no like wrong or right way to do this. On slide 21, I have some links, and I'll show you this one website really quickly. So this is Strictly Medicinal Seeds. This is kind of where I recommend people going for seeds. And if you go, this is where my seeds come from. And I'll have their seed catalog with me on Saturday as well. But if you just go in here and you look from whatever, if you know what to look for, you can search, or if you just want to poke around. They don't have the best website in the world, but um this website is a really big resource. And so if you click into each, like this is a seed we're going to grow, Echinacea purpurea, and it has like all of this information also about how to grow it. So you can even like research and learn about like what's needed right here. Plant prefers full sun, sow in the early spring in flats, etc. So this is like a wealth of knowledge. The guy who runs this is prolific. So that's a good resource. And then Crimson Sage Nursery, from Strictly Medicinals, you can get seeds or starts. From Crimson Sage, you can just get starts. So that's at a certain time in the year. Like they don't ship until like later in spring. I also, sometimes there's seeds that I can't find on there. And so some resources I've come up along the way are True Love seeds. Always getting local seeds is better for your bioregion. It's more effective. And Kitazawa Seed is a Japanese company. They do a lot of Japanese vegetables and herbs. And you can always trade seeds with people. They have a lot of different seeds and starts also at Rainbow Grocery in San Francisco. Any questions about that? Okay. Well, if anything pops up, feel free to unmute or pop it in the chat. The little activity I wanted us to do, hopefully this works, is this Padlet. So, open that up, and if you're just in there anonymous, what we'll have to do is just either leave it anonymous or you can write your name at the beginning. But this is just like a little brainstorming activity of like if there's any certain plants that you want to grow, if you have like ideas about like what a medicine garden should look like or what it could include. Um, this is just a like a little doodle for us to do that. Are you guys seeing that? Okay. So we have about 7 minutes, and if you haven't already submitted your Google form, you can work on finishing that up. If you finish that and you want to write in here, you can do that. And if anybody has any questions about Saturday, um, I will send a reminder email with the address and everything. But here it is if you want it in your right now. And just remember we're gonna be outside, so bring like, hat, sunblock, bring layers. It's always like foggy and then like a million degrees. Um, and we'll start like working around 10:10 just so everybody can like arrive and everything, but try to start on time. Do any medicinals grow indoors at all? Backyard challenge. I hear you, Ganesh. I am kind of experimenting with that. One that I've grown, do you get like sunlight in your apartment?
Yeah, for maybe about like 3 hours or so.
Yeah,
If there is, assuming there's no cloud cover, which is not always guaranteed in San Francisco.
totally. Um, I'm like playing around with that because I also live in an apartment and I don't have any space at home. Um, the one plant that I've grown for several years is ginger. And so if you're at the grocery store and you get a little knob, let me just grab it for you because I'm gonna bring some for us. So I was just at the grocery store today and I got a turmeric and a ginger. And so if you get something like this, these little points right here are gonna sprout, right? So I cut this, it's like dried, right? So like bacteria can't enter it. If you plant this, it will grow. And that's like one of the most ginger definitely likes sun and heat, but if you get a little sunny spot for it, that's definitely one that I have had like for years. I actually just like put the little knob in like another plant. So I have this like begonia and like ginger combination. Um, Generally, also it's worth mentioning that I kind of think as of plants in pots in a different way than I think of plants that are like connected to the ground. And that's because of my teacher, Peg Schaefer. She would always say that plants in the ground are connected to like the natural cycles. And so they have chi, which is like in traditional Chinese medicine, it's like energy, right? Um, Whereas if you have a plant in a pot, she says it lacks chi, like it lacks this like connection. And I think that you can sometimes see that in a plant if you're really observant, or you might notice that like an indoor plant is a little bit more sensitive. A lot of our indoor plants, as you might know, like the reason they're indoor plants is because they're from tropical places in the world. So they can't be outside. Um, and so what I say, and I'm pretty sure I got this from Peg Schaefer, is that like it's totally cool to have a plant indoors if you just want to like get to know the plant and feel connected to it and like learn from it and be around it. I have a little yarrow plant here. Let me show it to you. This is yarrow that I keep in a pot. This is kind of new. I've probably had it for like a month or two. But it's like really long and like leggy, and it kind of looks like it's stressed out a little bit. Like, oh, it definitely has aphids, which definitely means it's stressed out. So it's not like happy. Do you know what I mean? That's not to say don't do it, but it's just kind of like something to keep in mind that it's not necessarily going to be like medicinal quality, and like sometimes that matters and sometimes it doesn't.
Mm. Yeah, so that brought up a question for me is what do you think about cultivars? Like for
Mm.
example, I have a yarrow and it's a Sonoma Coast. It's like specific to that region. Because
I would want
cultivars,
to know more about where it came from.
because
Generally,
it's still Achillea millifolia. So I'm just curious if it's
do you know
describing the color. It's describing
if
the
it was
color.
Do you know if it's like a certain color or like certain cultivar from like a genetic development or just from a place?
I guess I'd have to look, but I believe that we selected specifically local native um, plants, and then we wanted the white color, and there it actually says that it's Sonoma Coast, but I have to look at it to see if that's like just a name they gave it, and it's like genetic, like it's been modified, or if it's saying that okay, this is still Achillea manifolia, and its natural region is Sonoma Coast, and then this cultivar is some another. It might be the actual location, but I'll follow up with you. I just thought maybe you might know.
Yeah, I would love to dig back into that. Maybe, yeah, once you do a little bit more research, because sometimes nurseries, like native plant nurseries, will like go out into the wild and they'll be like, "Ooh, look at this really white yarrow or this really purple violet," and
Yeah, and I
they'll
think
like
that's
give it a name, and that is like them like kind of self-selecting, similar to what I told you about the
Mhm.
lettuces, right? It's like being like focused on a particular trait. And
Yeah.
that's completely different than like a thornless rose. A thornless
Hmm.
rose, which we'll talk about more that type of thing in another class. Something like a thornless rose is like not helpful for what we're trying to do. It's
Right.
beautiful for landscaping, and maybe it's really helpful if you want to have like less pricks in
Ornamentals.
your
Yeah.
yeah, but
Hmm.
it's not the same purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is that it's a region and that it was selected because this is off of, are you familiar with cowscape.org?
Hmm.
So everyone else too, that might be a great website to look at as well. But they identify specifically things that are endemic versus whether it's naturalized. So you can kind of get an understanding and resources of where you can get something,
Yeah,
um, whether
that's a
seed
great
or, yeah.
online.
Yes. Sorry. Thank you.
Thanks, Raina. Are there any other questions before we go? I'm happy to stick around for a few more minutes. Okay. Well, I think we got a really good start. I'm excited to dig into these seeds with you. Um, I'll have everything we need there, and Isaiah will be there, and he's a lot of fun, and we'll talk about the garden and do a tour and everything. So, thank you so much for coming tonight, and for those who are joining virtually, thank you for getting to the end. Yeah. If you have any questions, definitely send me an email, or if it's like a garden question, many times other people have the same question, and you can just type it in the Google Classroom, and we'll all do our best to get back to you. So thank you, and take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much.